Hello there, YouTubes. Forgive me if I'm a little bit somber and possibly a tad more emotional than maybe I would be with a lot of my other videos, because this is not one I'd planned on doing at all. But something, and it's not a video I really wanted to make, but it's something I feel um, I sort of have to make. I'll give you a little bit of backstory before I get into the main beef of the or the meat of the thing. For many of you won't know because it's not something I think I've ever talked about. Um, Back in the day, when I was growing up, I was a huge fan of metal music, and I still am, but I'm not part of the culture now in the way that I was then. Um, but metal music, however you, whatever you think of it, was a huge part of my formation in terms of my musical tastes and growing up into an adult and dealing with a lot of things. And actually, it bleeds into the atheist part of it as well, because it was one of the ways in which I dealt with having been essentially lied to by the religious establishment and by teachers and all of that. And so metal music was a huge. It was like a friend to me, a really huge part of my adolescence and indeed into my adulthood. And I'm still a huge fan of it, but I'm not really part of the culture. As you can tell, I've got fucking Paddington in the background. It's not traditional metal fare, let's say, but I'm still a huge fan of the music. Um, and so I'm just explaining the kind of the bare bones of why this thing which I'm about to sort of describe to you has affected me. No, actually, it goes beyond, way beyond annoying. Like stubbing your toe is annoying. This is genuinely quite painful for me. Which it's going to sound silly in a way, but I think we all have our cultural moments and icons and stuff for whom we have absolutely no impact on their lives and what they do, but what they do has a huge impact on our lives. And this has affected me enormously. Now, this video is called Racism in Metal, which is the video that was released by a guy called Rob Flynn, who's a vocalist, guitarist, musician chap with an incredible band called Machine Head. And I'll play you, actually, I'm going to play you in my usual style because I'm so technologically unadvanced. I'm going to play you a little bit of the audio. You don't really need to see the visual because it's just him talking to the camera. My favourite bit of that video in a bit after I've explained the thing. He made a video in response to a thing that happened at an event called Dime Bash, which, for those who don't know, it was to honour the memory of a guy called Dimebag Darrell, who was a guitarist with an incredible band, again, a really formative band for me, growing up, called Pantera. And in fact, he was killed the year I left high school. That's, I mean, so we're going back a little bit. There was 2003, I think. And yeah, his death was enormously sad for me at the time. But you move on with your life. Anyway, this thing happened a few days ago. This thing called Dime Bash, which was a kind of a tribute to him and a tribute to metal music in general. And yeah, there was loads of really incredible acts. Anyway, it would have gone off, virtually unknown to the wider public had it not been for the actions of a guy called Phil Anselmo, who was the lead singer of Pantera, the bandmate or former bandmate, as it were, of the late Dimebag Darrell, who was unfortunately killed on stage with performing with one of his side project type things after the Pantera split. Anyway, so this was a tribute thing, and Phil Anselmo at the end of the gig gave a Nazi salute and screamed "White Power" to the audience. Right. Now, I'd always heard these kind of rumors of like, oh, Phil Anselmo's a bit of a Nazi or whatever, but you can't necessarily trust them because, like, with the passing of David Bowie recently, like he admitted to being a fascist in his youth. but you kind of think, well, you know, he had like a black wife and stuff. So look, how was he ever really a fascist? Was he a fascist who grew up? Who knows? And indeed, actually, in Rob Flynn's video, he admits to using the word nigger in his youth because he was jumped by like some black guys. But he grew up and moved beyond that. But clearly, Phil Anselmo did not. He caught on camera clearly, and there was no ifs or buts about it. He gave a fucking Nazi salute, a genuine Zig Heil, and screamed white power to the audience. Which he later tried to play off as, oh, it was about white wine, white power, white wine. What? Oh, God. That's so pathetic. It's so miserably pathetic as an excuse. And he's then, subsequent to that, come out and apologised for having done this. But frankly, he can stick his apology up his fucking ass. As a committed, long-time anti-fascist activist, this hurts me enormously because Phil Anselmo and Pantera were a huge part of like I said, I mean, I don't want to go just round in circles, but they were a huge part of my growing up. And so to see this guy who I'd considered not necessarily a hero, but like a cultural icon or whatever, to see him doing the most disgusting thing outside of, you know, I don't know, pedophilia or something, the most initially violent or sexual thing you could possibly do was to give a Nazi salute and to be a white power dickhead. And I don't give a fuck if there's any white power people out there. Go fuck yourself, seriously. I've got no time for it. And I'm not prepared to fucking talk to scum like you. Like I'll happily, like even with the, you know, obviously I'm mostly known as a feminist or whatever. Even with anti-feminists, I'll talk to anti-feminists. I disagree with them enormously, but I don't consider them really sort of scum or anything. They're just wrong, as far as I'm concerned. But with fascists, I hold no truck. There's no second chances. Well, not even second chance. Like I say, you can be a racist prick in your youth or whatever and get over it. Like there's always that second chance of such. But there's no debating with you. There's no. I'm not gonna. You're not gonna talk me into a position of like, oh, well, you're a bit racist, but never mind. You're a scumbag. You're a fucking scumbag. And I don't give a fuck for Anselmo's apology. I couldn't give two shits. He can stick it up his ass. He's dead to me, utterly dead to me, and that hurts. That genuinely hurts me. But there you go. I mean, like I say, I'm a bit emotional about this, and I didn't want to make this video, but like I say, I saw I'd been putting it off, watching Flynn's response to this because I knew it was going to hurt. Because like Rob Flynn and Salmo had been like friends for years and stuff, and like the bands had toured together and stuff. As like I say, I'll link. It's not linked at the moment, but I'll link Flynn's video below after I'm done with this, and because this is just sort of ad hoc, like I'm just sort of there's no, as you might be able to tell, there's no fucking script for this video. I'm just sort of rambling my way through it, just sort of pouring my heart out. And by all means, call me a fucking dickhead underneath this. I don't really give a fuck anymore. I'll play you the bit from Flynn's video, which I think sums up so much of what I want to say about this, because I've experienced as a white guy, I've never really experienced racism. Not that you can't be racist towards white people at all, but I live in a white majority nation where white people run the fucking joint. White people aren't fucking oppressed. Don't be silly. But I've experienced the racism within the metal community, and it can be difficult to stand up to. So I genuinely admire Flynn for speaking out and essentially saying "fuck you" to an out and out fucking legend of the metal scene. You know, like Phil Anselmo's not some little fucking guy. You know, he's a huge figure within metal. You know, so to speak out against him was really awesome. But anyway, my point was, I'll play this fucking bit for you if it'll play.
I don't get it. I don't get how this kind of shit is tolerated. I don't get how this shit is even blown off as acceptable, brushed off as acceptable. Do I think we should go and lynch Phil Anselmo and fucking call for his head? No. You're more than welcome to say all of that shit. You live in America, freedom of speech. You're free to say white power and Sikh all you want. But that freedom of speech doesn't allow you freedom from the criticism of that speech. Because that shit's wrong. It's fucking wrong. Somebody to sit there and go, oh, if you were offended by this, blah, blah, blah. If you weren't offended by that, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. There's no place for that in metal. And if there is a place for that in metal, count me out. Count me out.
Yeah, I think that just about sums up my feelings on it. Like I said, I'm not really part of the scene anymore. But if that's part of metal, if this kind of white power bullshit's part of metal, I don't want any part of metal. Anyway, that's all I had to say on this. Apologies for a slight break in the usual transmission from this channel and the usual style of the channel, whatever. But I've poured my heart out. By all means, stomp all over it if you wish. Pip pip.